Nikki Murin. I will ask Nikki to come on in a minute from Excel Recruitment, one of our partners for a long time now, Excel Recruitment, and certainly been providing people for many of our members across the piece, certainly through COVID and prior to that. Look, recruitment and retention is probably the biggest conversation we seem to be having with members at the moment, is around the difficulties of recruitment and retention. And clearly, you know, we have been in a very challenging environment. We continue to be in a very challenging environment. And Excel Recruitment have been the people that we've been going to. So hopefully Nikki will give you a few tips in terms of how to attract and retain talent in the current retail market. So, and I think at the end of this, if there's any information you want on salary surveys or anything like that, please either come through us, or Nikki's details will be shared at the end, and email her directly, and I'm sure she'll be able to come up with some of the answers. So Nikki, thank you very much for joining us, and over to you.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everybody. So hopefully we will scan through the below this afternoon, and you might get some takeaways from it. So I have based this, I suppose, on what I've been getting asked by retailers over the last 6 months, a year, probably longer. And so I've put some practical tips that you can use, probably more so for entry-level, junior staff and supervisors, because that seems to be one of the biggest issues that is impacting retailers across the country at the moment. So yeah, we'll just scan through the employment market and how to attract candidates, and touch on a little bit in terms of retention as well. Although I have seen that retention has been improving of late. All right, so we'll crack on. So this is all Excel Recruitment. I'm sure most of you have would have some information about us and what we do, but just, I suppose, as an overview, we are 21 years in business. We have specialized in the retail industry for all of that time, but it has expanded over the last maybe 5 years to go from end to end. So everything from head office and temporary recruitment and industrial, right across to our specialist functions. So I've spent 10 years looking after grocery and the grocery side of the house, and then Asin Lee, who I'm sure a lot of you would know, specializes in fashion and non-food. And we've won lots of awards as well. So okay, so I suppose in terms of the market as a whole, the last year has been particularly interesting. So we've seen, not to talk about COVID again, but we've seen a knock-on effect from COVID, where there was a year to 3 years of 2.5 years of the pandemic and unemployment payment. And what happened there was that there was a cohort of candidates, junior level candidates and entry level candidates, who would have received the PUP payment, and it would have made it more worthwhile for them to stay at home. And that's had a knock-on effect, because without that entry level candidate coming into the market, or staying in the market and going from part-time roles in school into permanent or trainee manager roles, supervisor roles, it has caused a knock-on effect and caused quite an overheating in the market. And so with that lack of entry-level candidates, it meant that candidates were being promoted quicker than maybe they should have been, and there was no one to backfill them. And also we have 3.9 is our unemployment rate at the moment. Perfect unemployment in Ireland is 4%, or was supposed to be 4%, so we've gone below that. So it really is a perfect storm. Retail, I suppose, traditionally hasn't been seen as an industry which is particularly attractive. The hours are long and difficult. You're dealing with the public, which is great and really rewarding, but also incredibly stressful. And you know, again, going back to COVID, it really switched the mindset of the public in terms of looking for a little bit more work-life balance, a little bit more time with their family, and so that's not offered in retail for the most part. And then also this has been caused because again during COVID, there was a cohort of candidates who returned to their home countries, and a lot of these again would have been working in specialist roles. So you know, we have seen a massive shortage in bakers and butchers, because a lot of them would have come from Eastern European countries and would have done an incredible job here, and then they went home and they didn't return. So it's really caused a gap in the market there for some of those specialist roles. The minimum wage, which was increased this year, quite substantially this year, it has in fact caused more disruption to the retail market from what I'm hearing from retailers. So there had been a knock-on effect already in that the entry-level rate had already increased naturally, because it was hard to get candidates and people were competing. But I suppose the introduction of the minimum wage increase meant that every role above that has shifted up, and so you now have candidates who are demanding higher salaries that aren't necessarily, you know, wouldn't traditionally, their experience wouldn't have warranted that salary up until now, but because of this, it's knocked on that impact onto the retailers, which has really been a disruption on top of, you know, the lack of candidates because of the cut payment. So, you know, there's someone should be answering for something, I'm sure. Okay, and then young retailers leaving the retail trade. So again, if you go back 5 or 6 years, you know, there was plenty of people working in retail who had degrees in, you know, anything else, everything from accountancy to business, but couldn't secure roles without experience. However, because we are past perfect unemployment, they now can get entry-level roles, and so they're opting for that rather than staying in retail and pursuing a career there. So yeah, so it's caused for basically a perfect storm in the world of recruitment, and it's why we're seeing such you know, such focus on recruitment at the moment. So I suppose what we're looking at today is what we can do about that, or what you guys can do about that to, you know, to get the candidates that you need into service the stores. And I suppose if nothing else, if we take away absolutely nothing else from today, it's this. It's that traditionally retailers, or anyone I suppose advertising a role, and anyone that's doing a long time would have always advertised the role and, you know, said we want someone who speaks English, we want someone who can work evening weekends, we want someone who's good at customer service. And the market and the mindset of the candidates on the market has shifted, and it's shifted quite substantially. And so now really going forward, and you'll see this is a common theme as we go through the next couple of slides, but whatever you're doing, the shift really needs to focus to, instead of what we want as an employer, but what we offer as an employer to an employee. And I suppose that needs to be reflected from everything from your advertising to your interviews to your job offers to discussing counter offers. And I think that mindset and shift in that mindset has caused can have a knock-on effect of being able to attract candidates, because candidates are going in to the market now, and it is really, you know, their mindset is really, what can you do for me? And so if you can put yourself in their shoes, it can make it a little bit easier to retain candidates or attract candidates. So first and foremost is when we are advertising the role. So everything from when you're writing a job ad for the internet to writing a job ad for a sign in a window, it's about writing it in such a way that you are saying, instead of saying this job is 30 hours a week, you must be available to work weekends, it's saying this is a fantastic opportunity and here is why, and actually starting the job advertisement with what you were offering rather than what you were looking for. Also, when you're writing a job ad, so I've seen people call sales assistants retail executives, or fresh food counter assistants, right? And I mean, they're nice titles and they are really reflective of what these candidates are doing. However, if it's for the internet, it needs to actually reflect the job title that is most commonly searched. So something to bear in mind. So if you're putting an ad up on the internet or in a shop window, if it's a sales assistant job, even if it's called something else within your store, I would suggest advertising as sales assistant. And that way it's more transparent what the role is, even if you do call it something else internally. Where is the role? So I know this sounds really obvious, but you know, actually stating the location that it's in and what the job involves. So again, like, it's best to be honest. Like, if your job is all evening shifts, then it's all evening shifts. You know, but it's about actually being upfront about it. And then the experience that's needed. Again, I would keep this to a minimum, especially if it's in an entry level role. And if it's at a more senior level role and you do need a level of experience, I would say have a look at what your ideal is and what your minimum acceptance is, and use it as a range rather than saying 5 years experience. Because you may have some people who have 4.5 years experience that won't apply. And I'm pretty confident that if they have 4 years experience, you know, they'll do the job for you. So so just to keep that peace of mind. And then most importantly on this is the positives of the job. So what you are offering them. So excellent salary range won't really attract candidates. You know, it might be a thing that you state your salary range, or it may be a thing that you say, you know, excellent work-life balance or flexible hours are available. We offer 10% discount on coffees. We offer free coffees. It doesn't actually matter what the benefits are, but listing them makes a huge impact to your response rate in terms of advertisement. And then again, it's quite obvious, but your contact details. I have seen more jobs than I'd like to admit that don't include contact details or how to apply for a job. So just something to be mindful for. And I know some of this will be sucking eggs, as they say, but it is, you know, these are the things where you do find people are losing out on. Okay, so continuing with advertising, so just a couple of ways in which once I suppose you've written the right job ad, you can advertise. So newspaper and radio are something that traditionally we as an agency would fall back on if we're recruiting a local role or a regional role. We would still use newspaper and radio for certain roles, and you know, I think each retailer will have to decide if the roles that they recruit are relevant, or the industry they recruit for is relevant to newspaper and radio. But what I will say is newspaper can be quite expensive. Radio can be free and can actually work quite well if you write the ad well. So so the free ones are usually 2 or 3 lines, no more than that, with your contact details at the end. So your name and a phone number, or your name and an email address. If your email address is really complicated, make it a non-complicated one. Before radio, if you can write the job ad, and going back to the last slide, if you can write the job ad in a way that you're selling it. So instead of saying sales assistants wanted for Clontarf, Dublin, it's about saying sales assistant, we have sales assistant jobs with excellent benefits, with fantastic flexible hours, contact, because you'll only get 2 lines, but it's about, again, selling the job in those 2 lines. But I do think radio can be a great way to attract candidates. Signs in windows. So I know this is very 1980s, 1990s, where that would be the main way that retailers advertised, and it would have been very successful. This is still one of the most successful ways that retailers are recruiting. However, it is directly linked to how well the ad is written. So a sign on a white piece of paper with a black marker saying staff want to apply within, not so much. But if you put up a nice sign, again, explaining what you're offering and how to apply, so an email address perhaps, again, that can genuinely be a really effective way of advertising. And it also gives the candidate an opportunity to see the business as they're walking around, and they know they can get there. And so it takes a couple of those questions out. So you've kind of a good captured audience there. These are a list of some of, you can see that, but these are a list of some of the radios which do a free advertising, so that we've used over the years. And so they're worth, you know, again, they're free, and so they're certainly worth having a look at if that's what if you want to advertise on the radio. All right. In terms of, so one of the most common ways now that people would advertise is on job boards, but they can be incredibly costly. So I've listed 2 lots here. So one is that you pay for and one is free. So it's worth having a look at the free ones. What I would say with either of these is that it's entirely dependent on how you are writing the job ads. So if you are about to spend money on job ads, you need to be quite mindful of the way that you're writing them needs to rank on Google. So if you're paying a lot of money, because they can be very costly, and so if you're paying quite a bit of money, it's worthwhile making sure that you are writing them in such a way that they will rank on Google. And so even if they're sponsored by the job board that you're paying them for, they will get outranked quite quickly in a Google search. And you know, when it comes to searching for jobs, most candidates are just using Google searches. They're not necessarily going into one particular job board and then searching. They're just doing an overall job search. So they might say store manager, corp, and they put that in Google. They don't go into jobs.ie and put it in, Irish Jobs, but put it in Indeed and put it in. So when you were writing these job ads, there's a couple of points to note. So the first one is that you should include your job title no more than 4 times, but no less than 2. And so this is what will help your job ad rank. And what I would also say is that if your job is for a store manager, that you write the title store manager, that you don't call it, you know, a retail site manager, because essentially what you want to target is you want to target that Google search, and every store manager in the country will type in the term store manager job, or nobody would type in retail manager site role, you know, and so it's about using the titles that they will actually search. And the other thing is to note is that very often when you're writing a job ad, people write this role, but if you can include the word job rather than role, so you need to use the language that a candidate would use when searching the job ad. I would also say to you that job ads which include the salary rank 30% better, have a 30% higher rate of engagement than roles that don't have the salary. So even if you want to keep your salary confidential, even if you don't want to cause ripples in your store, I would suggest that you put a salary band on it to keep it a little bit broad. Candidates, there's just a lot less applications come in for roles where they don't have the salary range on it. And again, I would get a little bit more specific with the location. So there's a big difference between North County Dublin in Portmarnock and North County Dublin in Balbriggan in terms of being able to get there, especially if you are an entry-level candidate and you are, you know, using public transport, right? So if you can get more specific with the location of the role, for more senior roles, I think, you know, you can be comfortable enough to say North County Dublin and keep it a little bit wider, but for more junior roles, I would narrow that down. And then to say from this, so if you were going so far as to setting up a job board or to setting up an ad on a job board, I would certainly then use as many of the free job boards as you can. I would also highly recommend setting up your own specific email address to match this job board or to match the job application, so that they have a designated email address they can send them to for loads of reasons. But one, in 2 years' time, you will still be inundated with candidates applying to old roles for any reason at all. But number 2, it's a place for you to, I suppose, respond to your applications, because essentially this is still you representing your business. And so it's never a nice feeling for any candidate when they apply for a role and they don't get a response. But if you set up a Gmail account and you set up 2 folders in it, one with that you want to screen, that you want to speak to, and one that you know you need to reject because you can see that they don't live here, or, you know, and that way you can just do reply to all when you finish your process, and everyone gets a thank you for applying, we fill the role. But it also means that you have some sort of, so if the first candidate doesn't work, you can go back to your folders in your specific email account, and you can scan through them and find the next suitable candidates through. So it's a really good practice. I would also say that if you have a role where you're looking to hire a number of, you know, temp or short-term contract or sales assistants for the summer, or contract work or seasonal roles, is that I would often set up a draft email that you can send to all candidates that apply. And what this is going to do is you can include an application form or just 4 questions where you ask them, you know, perhaps where they're living or if they can commute to your business. You would ask them in the hours that they're available to work. You might ask them their expected salary range or their current, you know, their current salary expectations. Or you could ask them, have they an EU passport or a visa to work here? Or you may ask around their English competence, or, you know, whatever you feel the questions are, that at the very minimum you need. And the thing is, if they apply in and you send that standard email back to everyone saying, like, thanks for your application, please answer the 4 questions, and then we can, you know, progress to the next stage. So whilst you don't want to delay any processes, this should whittle down suitable candidates, and it also means that you're able to respond quite quickly to every application, and we'll also gauge the level of interest. So if they come back nice and quickly, then you know you can move forward with that candidate. So I think that's certainly something that's worth doing. So following from that, then is another form, I suppose, of using the digital world. It is to go ahead and use social media. And so this ranges obviously from LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. I would say Instagram is probably, like, Instagram can be great and can cause a lot of engagement for brand, but in terms of recruitment, it's not a tool that will typically, I would see as a success. LinkedIn is great, but again, not for more junior level roles, but would be quite successful for senior level roles. But there's quite a bit of work to be done in terms of reaching out to candidates on that, and you need to have a specific license to do that. So it depends on what level that you're looking at recruitment for. And one of the best social media platforms for recruitment, however, is Facebook. And so Facebook, there's a number of groups on Facebook. So there's Leinster Job Fair, or Cork Jobs, Dublin Jobs, North Dublin Jobs. And so, you know, you just search groups and you'll find all these. If your store has its own page, you can use that. However, it has been proven that the posts that get the most responses come from personal posts. So if I put up a post from Excel Recruitment, say retail assistants wanted for store in South Dublin, €13 an hour, contract work, it's unlikely I will get even a third of the amount of responses as if I put up from Nikki Moore and put up a post in Leinster Job Fair boards or group to say, I know of a store in South Dublin looking for staff, DM me for details. This, again, it goes back to responding. So once I put that post up, I will likely get quite an influx of applications, but it's about making sure that I'm within my direct message platform and actually being able to respond to each of those candidates saying, hi, thanks for applying, or thanks for reaching out. Please email your CV to, and send in an email address. But it can be a really good platform. But I would say using your own personal account is usually a lot more. It works a lot better than using a professional account. I don't know why. I don't know what the rhyme or reason is to it. I just know that is absolutely true. So it's one to worth having a look at. And that can be particularly good for quite local areas. So if you're putting, you know, if you have a role in Balbriggan, for example, if you find Balbriggan lost and found, or you could lost and found group, or buy and sell group rather. Some of them have thousands and tens of thousands of followers on them, and they'll allow you to put a post in there from a personal account. Okay. Another way, I suppose, of advertising or reaching out to candidates is using your own current team and seeing if they can reach out for you. So there's so many benefits of this. One, it's the cheapest possible way of doing it. Number two, you know, you're getting like-minded people and you're getting people that are vouched for. So it's funny how often retailers have come to me to register sales assistant roles, and I would say to them, you know, are your staff not recruiting their friends or people, you know, that they know in the area? And so, oh gosh, I never asked them. But this can be one of the absolute best methods of recruiting people. What I would say to you is that if you can give an incentive to your staff, a €50 voucher will do it. That often will encourage them to do it a little bit more. And also they know that it's, you know, it's their reputation on the line as well. So they do generally recommend good people, and then the people that have recommended them put them under pressure to make sure that they're, you know, not letting each other down. So it works out best for the business. The one piece that I would say to move with caution on this one is that if you are rejecting one of your team members' friends or recommendations, you need to tread quite carefully there, and make sure that it's nothing, you know, make sure that you're doing it in quite a professional manner, and that you're informing everyone in a timely manner, and that I suppose you need to be quite upfront and honest with them in terms of why that's happening. So it can be a little bit of a tightrope to walk, but I think it's worthwhile doing if you're getting, you know, really good candidates referred on from your current team. Okay. Okay. And then I'm sure I have said this already, but if there's one other thing then, say, to take from today, so the last piece is in terms of like advertising and how to attract in CVs, say, and then once you have the CVs, the interview and offer stage is without a doubt, this is the one piece that I would ask you to take from today. So if you can bear in mind that when clients or retailers would have interviewed candidates 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the interview would have been 98% of tell me about you, tell me what you can do for me as an employee, tell me how you would do, what would you do if, how have you done this in the past? And, in a standard interview, but tell me about yourself, tell me about your experience, tell me what you bring to the table, what do you offer to this company? However, candidates will no longer accept that from an interview. And so there has been just such a huge shift. And so really now what I would recommend is that you split your interview in two. And so the first half of the interview is a quick introduction, and then you go through their CV, so tell me about you, and quantify their experience and make sure that they're suitable for you. And you have half of the interview to do that. The second half of the interview, which seems a crazy split, but the second half of the interview should be you selling you and your business to them. And that might seem, and obviously if you know that the candidate is not for you, over the course of the interview, that second half can be quite small. But if this is a candidate that you are interested in, that you think that is someone that would add value to your business, the second half of the interview should absolutely be you selling the business to them. So everything from this is our culture, and then a really honest conversation around these are the hours that you would typically work, that we would expect you to work, but also this is what we will give you if you do that. So, I'm being honest, this is the rate of pay, but also in year 2, this is the rate of pay. This is how often we do reviews. These are the sort of bonuses that we offer our team. These are the days out. This is what we did at a Christmas party. And I know they sound like such small things, but it is those added extras that will make the difference when a candidate is meeting you this morning and 3 other companies this afternoon. And so you're telling them about the culture. You might give them your own history in terms of how you joined in a more junior role and how you progressed through the business, or if not you, someone else that you know in the business, so examples of that, and how you could see the same for them. I would also say that during this part is that, honesty. So very often when people meet an interview, they like the candidate and they really want them to fix a hole in their store. They want them to fix an issue in their store. So they're eager to get them on board. And so sometimes they can oversell and say, oh yeah, like it's some weekends, it's not all weekends, it's some weekends. Or look, we have a really good roster system here where it's 1 in 4. And if that's the case, it's great, and it's great to be upfront about that in an interview. However, if that's not the case, you are wasting quite a bit of your own time in hiring someone, offering them the job, and then them starting and realizing within 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, after you've trained them and invested them and settled them in the team, that this isn't actually, that it's not what it said on the tin, and that actually they work every weekend or whatever it may be. So it's better for that part, whilst you're selling to them, that you're also being really upfront about what this job entails. And by spending that time in the interview, you will find a much higher success rate in terms of job acceptance and counter offers not being accepted, if that makes sense. So one of the big issues that retailers are telling me that they're facing at the moment is that they can attract candidates from advertising. That's okay. They can hold interviews, and some of the candidates show up to interviews, but the ones that do, the interview goes fine. They decide they want the candidate, and then when they go to offer them, the candidate either accepts or either doesn't accept, accepts and then declines, accepts and then takes a counter offer, and then declines, or accepts and then doesn't show up on the first day. And so I would say to you that how you stop that from happening is in the interview process. So it's by sitting in and actually selling your business to them, but very honestly and openly selling your business to them and what they can expect from you as an employer. So yes, the counter offer is, yeah. So again, like I would go so far. So when we get an offer for a candidate, we would go so far as to talk them through handing in their notice. So we don't know how relevant this is to what we're talking about today in terms of junior candidate, but I do think it's a point worth noting. So when I have store manager candidate or assistant manager candidate and they come to me and I have a job offer, I give them a job offer, I would then encourage them to talk me through the next couple of steps of them handing in their notice and what's likely to happen. So again, if you're offering a candidate a job offer for a store manager, you might say to them, okay, that's great, there's a job offer, that's great. And they say, oh yeah, that's great, I'm delighted to accept. I would then follow that up with, okay, well, what's next? Can we agree a start date together before you go hand in your notice? What do you expect that to be? They might say, oh, a month. And you say, okay, great. And plant the seed of the start date in your head. So now you're making it more difficult for them to backtrack on you, because sometimes candidates will accept a counter offer because it's just uncomfortable to have to disappoint their boss. But now, if they've agreed a start date with you, now they know they're disappointing one person or another, so they may as well go with a new job. I would also say, okay, so you're handing your notice tomorrow. And then I would encourage them to be like, okay, and so when you hand in your notice, are you going to tell them where you're going, or at least talk it through with them in their head? And that way it will make them a little bit more confident handing in their notice. And once they've had a conversation about what that will look like, they're much more likely to follow it through. Because the amount of candidates who don't take job offers because they're just a little bit scared or a little bit nervous about making a move or handing in their notice is quite high. So if you can alleviate those concerns while you're rolling out a job offer, it can definitely help. And then just on that, when you're offering the job, so it's about making the job offer as attractive as possible. So everything from bringing them to say, congratulations, we're so thrilled, we really like you, we think you're going to be great here, instead of being like, hi, we'd like to offer you the job. I would actually make sure that you're emphatic about, like, it's amazing news, we're so excited, we really like you, we think you're going to do great here, we're really excited to have you on board. And then follow that up with an email quite promptly after with an offer letter with outlining how many hours a week you're giving them, or the benefits that you spoke about, whether that be free tea and coffee or free parking. They don't have to be crazy benefits, but list every single one you can think of. And if a Christmas party is one of your benefits, and Christmas party, if it's whatever the benefits are, I would include them in there. And put that in an offer email and send that over to them. And it just makes it a little bit more concrete, and also it comes off quite a professional, it comes off quite professional from the business. So it makes them much more, I suppose it makes them feel a little bit more certain about making that move into a company that has represented themselves so well and so professionally, and really wants them. Like, that's quite a nice feeling for a candidate to have. Okay, so that's attraction, I suppose, in terms of how to attract candidates. I would say to the interview and job offer stage are probably really where you have the most opportunity to influence candidates in terms of getting them into your business. And so it's about you portraying how exciting this business is and why they should want to join it, and really making sure that you guide them through that process if they're a candidate that you've identified that you would like. I just want to touch briefly before we finish up on retention. So I suppose if you can retain your candidates, there is a lot less need to go attracting new candidates. And so there was just a couple of things. I know Asin had done a webinar a number of months ago, and I suppose there was a couple of pieces from that that I thought were warranted kind of reiterating today. So the big thing about retention that we see time and time again is that people will not people will not leave a business because they want more money. So they won't leave their current employer just for £2 across the road. That's unlikely as to why they will leave. It's a lot of hassle, it's a bit scary going to a new employer. So it's unlikely that they will leave just for that. However, if they feel undervalued, they will absolutely leave. They will leave for 10 cents an hour more. So if you can make your employees feel valued, and that doesn't have to be in monetary value, but if you can make them feel valued and fairly paid, they will stay. So the pieces that they look for in terms of staying in a business, it's not necessarily about their basic package, right? It's, like I say, they will leave if they feel undervalued, but they won't move for more money. I know that sounds like it's counterproductive, but that is the case. But they will stay. So the things that they will stay for a nice culture. They will stay if they feel valued. They will stay if they have some flexibility around their work-life balance. And that's a piece that retailers, I think, are becoming more and more aware of, and something that they're working much more on. So I have never seen anything like the reduction in contracted hours over the last 18 months, and it's fantastic. But when I started doing recruitment for grocery retail, which is 10 and a half years ago, a while ago, when I was taking on a job, when I was registering a new role, I never asked what the contract hours were. It never occurred to me to ask. Retailers never spoke about it. Candidates never spoke about it. It was retail. And if you asked, in fact, if a candidate would have asked me 10 years ago what the contract hours were, I would have seen it as a red flag. I would have thought, you don't really belong in retail. And that is the God's honest truth. Whereas now, every candidate will ask, and I will ask clients. I will say, like, what are the contract hours? So it used to be 48 hours was the contract hours, because that was the legal maximum hours that you could do over an average of 11 weeks. But like a good retailer would say to me, you know, my contract's 48, but you know yourself, I'm always here. Now, if the candidate says that, it kind of shows there's something probably wrong. So now, like, I would ask all clients what their contract hours are, and it's amazing. So many of the retailers, and really big, from really big retailers, and multiples to independent stores, all of them are making an effort. Most of them are making an effort to reduce their contract hours, or to at least be flexible or more flexible with their rota system, and that is having such a knock-on effect in the market. So I didn't actually ever think that would happen. If I'm honest, I didn't see how that would be implemented, because it's quite an expensive thing to implement. If you think about it, if you reduce all of your managers by 5 hours, those hours still need to be billed in the store. But it has been happening, and it's something that I suppose that candidates are much more likely to stay for. So the amount of candidates that I would call about a role, and they would say, well, how many contracts there is? Oh, that's 45. Well, I'm now on a 39-hour contract, and actually, even though that one's more money in close to home, I don't want to work 45 hours. I want to work 39 hours. And so it is something that will, you know, does have a knock-on effect of retaining people. And as, you know, aside from the cost of attracting and training new candidates, you know, being able to retain your current team, you know, it's obviously the ideal scenario. So it causes stability, and then even more experience in store, but also it provides a really nice reputation. So if you're interviewing with someone, you say, well, my management team are here, you know, the average length time is 6 years. I think it has a nice, it shows that longevity, shows that we're quite a nice stable team, and it offers quite a nice stable environment when you've part-time candidates coming in then, you know, if you can keep a nice stable team around them. So in terms of retaining talent, so just the last couple of things to touch on. So growth and progression. So obviously these are the things that you can focus in on to make sure that you are looking at retaining your people. So growth and progression, so candidates or your staff actually seeing that there is pathways to grow and pathways to progress in the store. That makes a massive difference. Salary and benefits, so it's not about throwing the salary at them, but more that they feel that their salary is reflective of their value. And so if they feel like they're undervalued in comparison to other stores or the market, they will absolutely leave. But if they feel like they're getting a fair market rate, they're generally quite happy. And then benefits. So benefits are a big part of retention. So they, you know, candidates will typically stay if they feel like the benefit package is quite nice, because it's difficult to gauge what benefits can be if you're going out into the market. But if you feel like your benefits are quite good, they're more likely to retain. Work-life balance, so we've touched on that, but that is a piece that is more and more important to candidates on the market. And company culture. So again, this one's really hard to quantify, and it's hard, you know, it's a hard thing to fix. But I know that, you know, the difference in a candidate coming forward for me, you know, to make a move, oftentimes they think, do you know what, I really like it here. I like this business. And, you know, part of that is I like the team that I work with. I feel valued. I feel respected. You know, I like the people that I work with. So it's about that all that piece, that kind of softer pieces around culture. And feeling value and not bored. So a little bit of autonomy, and making sure that they feel like they're part of I suppose they're part of the team in store. And then these are just two examples of, I suppose, some examples of some companies, IKEA, Reebok, that were doing, you know, some things well that was causing their retention to increase, which is good. And the other one is actually a list of benefits. So again, this goes back to perhaps reminding your team of the benefits that you offer, and also when you're offering job offers. So there's a list of all of the potential benefits that you can offer your candidates. And so if you do have them, some of them are free, and some of them are absolutely not. But if you can include them and let them know about them, and include them in any job offers, and obviously interview process. So that's it. Short and sweet today. But I just wanted to tip on some, I suppose, points that might actually assist in terms of recruitment. So I'll pass back over to Duncan, and if you have any questions, I am very happy to hang on.
Great stuff. Listen, Nikki, thank you so much. I think just listening to what you're saying there's some real positive tips, a lot of common sense as well, isn't there? But I think what's fascinating is just to listen to perhaps how things have changed. Your points there at the end around what people were maybe looking for 10 years ago versus what they're looking for now is completely different, isn't it? So yeah, fascinating. And I love your points around the importance of feeling valued, flexibility, growth and progression, work-life balance, culture, all of those things so important. And I'm always thinking back to times of old when I was looking at what was in the newspaper. It was the Irish Times, wasn't it, on a Friday, where you used to see all the job ads. Those days have now gone a long time ago, and it's all what's online. So fabulous stuff.
Thanks so much. But I mean, genuinely, I worked in discount retail before I did this, so it's a good decade ago. But we didn't talk about hours. Like the phrase work-life balance, it didn't exist, and like, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're wrong, the candidates today looking for it, but it's been such a shift over the last decade, and I'm sure it'll shift again. But it's been really interesting, and I suppose so many of the retailers today that I speak with, they're, if they haven't been doing a lot of recruitment in the last couple of years, that's quite shocking to them that the contracted hours have dropped so substantially, and so it's trying to keep up with those trends, and see what actually is attracting newer candidates. So yeah.
And you mentioned to me earlier about salary surveys. So which areas have you got salary surveys in Excel Recruitment? And
you're going to get me in trouble here, Duncan, because I'm going to leave out a department that we have. So obviously, we have quite a robust grocery salary survey. We've fashion and non-food. We've all head office. We have industrial. I think that should cover most of it from end to end. So we do everything from picking in warehouses and drivers, and right through to store managers, regional managers, deli managers, fashion area managers, non-food, big box. So there's something for everyone. So if you're looking for a salary survey and you tell me your industry, we probably have it covered. But if you drop me a line, I can send it on to anyone that wants it.
Okay, so drop your line there at nikki@excelrecruitment.com. Yeah,
that's the one. Thanks.
And your mobile number and landline there as well. So Nikki, thank you so much. As always, a great pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for your time. And if any of you out there have got questions for Nikki, please drop her a line, give her a call. If you've got a need to fill a vacancy, I'm sure Nikki and the team will be delighted to talk to you and delighted to support you in any way. So thank you for that, Nikki, and thank you for everybody coming on, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, Nikki. Bye for now.
Thanks so much. Bye.